Thanks, Indora. You are faster than I could imagine or was ready for. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is the Aspen City Council work session for February 3rd, 2025. On our agenda this evening, we have some board and commission interviews, as well as a water quality update. We're going to go through our board and commission interviews first. We're going to try to go pretty quickly as we have a lot of people attending. So we're going to start off with HPC. I had a request for Jody Service and Duncan Klaus. If you guys are here, come on up to the front desk if you don't mind. Council members, this is HPC. We have 2 regular member openings as well as 2 alternate openings and 2 applicants. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Hi.
My first question to both of you, and Jody is reapplying, so I'm sure of her answer, but Duncan, are you aware of the role, responsibilities, and meeting commitments that the Historic Preservation Commission asks for?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll open it up to any other council members for questions this evening. Ward.
Thank you both for applying. Jody, you have a list of projects that you're involved in. I'm curious, in your tenure on HPC, how many conflicts of interest have you had that you've had to recuse yourself from?
Maybe one.
Maybe one?
Yeah, I can't think of any time I've recused myself except for something that was not project related.
Okay. All right. That was my.
Thank you. Sam, anything from you?
I'll just go, thank you, Jody, you're replying, you're good. Duncan, what's your main motivation for HPC?
More civic engagement. I was on the original Next Gen Commission, just haven't been involved in a bit since the brewery, and thought this would be a cool, another step back into just being engaged civically, and dovetails well with being in real estate now.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you. John?
No, I read your, I read your resumes. You're both highly qualified. Joe, I think you've been doing a great job, so I'm just going to focus on Duncan. Also, is there anything about the HPC you'd like to see done differently?
No, I think from a policy standpoint, I think the HPC does a great job in terms of, really preserving some of Aspen's iconic spaces. And I'm just eager to, continue that mission and get involved.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
All right, that's it for me. Thanks, Duncan.
I guess one other question for you. Do you see any conflict between maybe real estate initiatives and goals as well as historic preservation for the community? Do you see that there's a conflict there at all or not?
I see that there could be in theory a conflict. I think, I have really genuine motivation for this community and preserving, all the aspects of Aspen's amazing history, in addition to, having a second career here as a real estate agent. But, I think with, a good sense of what's really matters, I think, I'll be able to keep clear decisions on HPC versus what's personally effective for real estate.
Thanks. There's no other questions for you. Jody, good to see you.
See you
Have
too.
a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for your interest. Thanks for your continued service. And
Thank you,
we
guys.
will let you know very soon.
Thank you all.
Thanks so much,
Thanks, guys.
No.
He withdrew.
Yep. Open space. We have Dan Pearl, Ted Mann, Carl Adam, and Jeff Novak. There are 4 seats, or there's 3, but if you'll drag another seat over, we'd take all 4 of you at the same time.
I don't see Dan. He's going to appear virtually, I think I read.
Hello.
He is virtually with us.
Okay.
For council members, there are 2 regular openings. We have reapplications from Dan Pearl and Ted Mann. I will start off, obviously, 2 of you have served, but the same question I asked the last group was, are you aware of the role, responsibilities, and the meeting days and commitments of the Open Space Board?
I am.
Yes.
Thank you. With that, I'll open it up to other council members for some questions. Start at that end if you want, Sam.
Just want to thank you all for applying and ask if any of you want to comment on the bike skills park and how that transpired and how you feel about it.
Since we can't see you, Dan, I'll start with you.
Sure. Look, I think that was, I'm proud of the way that process worked. I'm not sure if you guys can see me, but I'm not sure how to turn my camera on, but I think what I'm most proud about in that process is the collaboration between our board, the Open Space and Trails Board, and City Council, and the way that we've been able to sit down together and work through that issue. And while ultimately we didn't come to the same conclusion about that space, I was proud to be able to bring kind of all the complexities about that decision to you all to make your decision. And I think that's kind of one of the strengths of what we've been able to accomplish over the last couple of years, is just being able to collaborate, work together, and help you all kind of see all sides of these complex issues so that you guys can make the most informed decision.
Thanks. Jeff, did you see any of the conversation that was around the bike skills park that was proposed at Marolt?
You know, I did follow that peripherally. Wasn't super involved in the process, obviously, and I'm sort of glad it didn't pass, but yeah.
Thank you. Ted?
Yeah, just kind of echoing what Dan said. It was a pretty thorough process. We were talking about it for on and off for the better part of 3 years. And I thought at the end, we had collected, opinions on Aspen Community Voice. There was a lot of turnout in early meetings from supporters. And then we did the community walkthrough with you all on the site back, maybe that was September, October. And then apparently we heard from some in opposition that were very vocal at the end. So for me, it was a learning experience because I thought we had covered everything. It seemed like things were going in a certain direction. I was supportive of it partly because the community support at the time was in favor, at least those who showed up to the meetings. The fact that it changed at the end and we're not going to do it as we had discussed there, it sounds like it's still up for discussion, maybe different locations. I mean, I'm okay with that. I think we were fine with how we listened to everybody and how the process went. And, this is just part of how it all works. So I don't think there are any hard feelings. I was a little disappointed that we had put so much time into it, and then it was at the 11th hour that opposition seemed to get very vocal. So I think we could have saved some time if we had heard from them much earlier, but that's the way this, process goes.
Thanks.
I obviously was not as involved as Ted or Dan from the sounds of it. I followed it through the newspapers. I feel like the bike park would be an important community asset and something that should be considered. I also feel there's a lot of pressure on Marolt right now, given some of the options that are being put in front of the city. And so I think it's probably something that needs to be dealt with in a longer term vision processing, which it sounds like that's where it's gone to ultimately. So I'm supportive of the conclusion, and it sounds like it was a good process, aside from some time wasted.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you all for your answers. Very thoughtful.
Go to Bill.
Thanks to all 4 of you for applying and for your interest, and nice to see all of you. Was wondering if you could briefly share your thoughts on the upcoming ballot question, Referendum 1, which proposes to increase the threshold required to sell or change the use of city-owned parks or open space from the current simple majority of 50% plus 1 vote to a new threshold of 60% plus 1 vote.
I believe the Parks and Open Space did take a position. I think your question should be focused on an individual position.
Correct.
It should not be speaking for the Parks and Open Space Board, but I would advise all candidates that it's a political question that they may or may not deem appropriate themselves to answer.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.
I'll go in reverse. Carl, I'll start with you.
I think that we've got a lot of complex issues in front of us, again, similar to the prior answer. And, certainly one of the hot button issues right now is to how to deal with our entrance to Aspen. And I don't pretend to have the right answer to it. I think that what's important for these processes is to gain input from the community and put options in front of the community stakeholders and let the community at large decide. I find these issues to be incredibly complex, and so I would assume that the position of a board or a group like this is to present viable options and then have those options flow to the community and let them decide as a group.
Yeah, so I sat in on the board meeting where if I could just speak to what we did as a board and then can speak to my personal belief, is that okay? Yeah, well, I think we chose not to endorse it. We did not vote to oppose it. We had a pretty healthy discussion. 6 board members, I believe it was 6 present, voted 5-1, 5-1 not to endorse this measure, basically not having a statement. The discussions there, and I voted with the 5, was that it seems like, and there was a member from the city attorney office there to kind of clarify some things for us as we debated it. There's only one other example in the city charter that requires a supermajority. That was pointed out to me, at least, that it's only changes to Ute Cemetery and John Denver Shrine that require more than 50% plus 1 to make a change. So I thought that was an interesting thing to note, that is also 50% plus 1 to approve the purchase and an establishment of open space. So then to require a supermajority to change it later seemed excessive, and I believe that's where my stance is on it. I am all for the democratic process, but there's no other example except for these 2 small parcels in town that require 60% to make any changes, and therefore I didn't think that this amendment, or rather referendum, had my support.
Thank you. Jeff?
Well, I feel that these parks and open spaces are so sacred in our valley, and we have such a limited quantity. I would be in favor of this measure to protect them.
Thank you. Dan?
Yeah, thanks. Look, this is obviously incredibly complex issue. And one of the benefits of the process that's playing out is the voters get to use their voice here. So in terms of referendum 2, I'm looking forward to, I'm grateful that we have an opportunity just to see where our citizens land on this. That's why we decided kind of as a board, or personally, not to make a statement in terms of referendum 2. We'll let the community make that decision. In terms of referendum 1, I felt like the downside of supporting referendum 1 is that it limits the city's ability to really do what it deems necessary to provide the best portfolio of open space and trails, because of the way that it limits the elections in which these decisions can be made. Special elections can be super important in order for the city to move quickly when an opportunity presents itself to add to our portfolio. And referendum 1 would ensure that these elections could only happen during general elections. So that could really kind of tie the hands of city staff when it comes to taking advantage of some really great opportunities that can benefit all of us. I did not support referendum 1, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where the community lands on referendum 2.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions from you, Bill?
No, thank you.
Okay, John?
I'm good too. Thanks.
Ward?
Well, I'd like to thank you for your replies on Ref 1 and 2. I'm not sure if it's appropriate to put you on the spot on that. I know that the board voted 5-1 not to take a position or not to oppose or support referendum 1. These are complex issues, and the community will decide. They're both on the ballot. Carl, you made a comment about letting the community decide. Do I interpret that to mean that you support Ref 1?
I support letting the community vote on these issues. I think that they're, you know, especially with the entrance to Aspen issue that's in front of us, it's going to impact this community forever. You know, it's irreversible. And so I think it's something that's very important to let the Aspen community vote on.
They'll have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Ward. I don't have any further questions. There's no follow-ups? John?
I will say I appreciate you answering the question. It helps me make my decision. Thanks.
Thank you to all of you for applying. Thank you to those that have served, and we will let you know very soon. Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Next board that we'd like to talk to applicants would be the LLA. We have Chris Benden, Christine Romello, Michael Woodrow, Francis Stuckins, Linda Manning, and Hunter Galvin. That is 6. Are they all with us? We have one. Yep, you can curl on around. Yep, you can do that. Yep, that's awesome.
Orders on Zoom.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you for reapplying for the board. The LLA is in need of 2 regular members and 1 alternate member. Chris Benden is reapplying. I'll ask the same question I ask. Are you aware of the role, responsibilities, and meeting times of the LLA, and are you able to fulfill those? You don't have to raise a right hand or anything, just say yes. If there's anybody that says no, just say no a little louder.
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Michael. All right, excellent. With that, I'll look around for other council members. I can start with Bill if you want.
I'm still thinking. Thank you.
All right. John, anything?
Still thinking as well.
Board?
First of all, I want to thank Chris for his service on the board and for his interest in reapplying. Christine, what encouraged you to run for this board?
My name's Hunter.
You're Hunter. Is it Christine here?
I'm Christine.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I have a friend that was on the board previously and knew that the board needed additional members. So wanted to serve the community and thought I could help this way.
Do you have any affiliations with bars or restaurants or cannabis?
I do not.
Right. I was just going to ask each of you if you want to say what your motivations were for applying to this board.
Yeah, I'll start. My name's Hunter. I was a bartender in town for 8 years, and I just want to be a part of the community and give back now that I'm not bartending anymore.
Thanks, Sam. This is, I think, the 3rd board I've applied for, so I'm just going to keep going until I get on one of them. I've got the experience, knowledge, and time to be on this board.
Francis?
Well, you know, I've addressing your question or your comment, Ward, I do have an interest in wanting to have a cannabis consumption lounge. And I'm also licensed as Green Cuisine Aspen as a food and drug license. So I might not be able to be part of the board if it's a conflict of interest. Other than that, I've been in the restaurant
I don't
business
know
here.
all the specifics you're talking about. The question's always, do you have to recuse yourself for situations which you probably could? And then the question for council is how often is that recusal required or would be required, and it does become such a circumstance where it interfere with your ability to really provide assistance to the board. But I don't know all your specifics, so I can't tell you.
I would think that all my experience in the food and beverage industry in town might be very applicable or appropriate for me to be on the board, and I would love to serve, because I see a lot of commercialism going on, and too many restaurants, and I don't want to cripple the economy or anything, but I would definitely want to have a voice in the future of the food and beverage here.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go again? It's kind of the same question, but I can answer it again. Again, just want to serve the community, have been a part of the community for over 5 years now. I have a master's degree in business, so understand interpreting the law and understand, what a board like this would need. So I think I could be an asset and would help a lot.
And I've enjoyed my time on the board. It's interesting. It's a pretty easy board to be on in terms of the overall lift, so that's nice. And I think, businesses, I think, appreciate the ability to explain a particular circumstance if they get into an enforcement issue, which we had a few in the last couple months. There can be extenuating circumstances, and understanding sort of the posture and position of the proprietor is important to understand, especially when we're talking about the veracity of their license going forward.
Thank you. Michael.
Michaels. Yeah, thanks. So this is actually the second board I'm applying for, so I'm not 0 for 2 or much 0 for 1. But, it's time for me to give back. My wife and I have raised 5 children in Aspen, lived in Aspen for 25 years. Our youngest, our little caboose, is a senior in high school this year, so I also will have a little bit more time. I run a technology business. We've got about 70 employees globally, so I kind of understand the issues of making decisions. I would say that I'm pretty much of a rule follower, so I would really be looking to what the guidelines were. If you select me, you'd be looking for someone to really look at the guidelines and see what the rules are. If the rules aren't good, then it should get thrown back to you guys to change the rules. But there's rules in place and precedent in place, and I think I'd be looking to contribute.
Thanks, Michael. I just can't help but look at Michael's picture and wonder if he's in the back of a cop car right now.
I was thinking ultimate taxi.
Is it flashing? I should turn off my...
It's all good. That assures me enough, Michael. It's all
I don't
good.
know what's flashing behind me, but sorry.
Bill, did you have...
Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks to all of you for your interest in applying and serving on this board. You only need to answer this if you have anything to say here, but is there any element of our current licensing process or the way that we have been doing things historically that you'd be interested in changing, that you think that the community could benefit from a change on? Francis, I know your answer, but the rest I do not know the answer on.
Thanks, Bill. I think Francis brings up some interesting points with the cannabis consumption now that it's legal in Colorado. I was with the city when just regular marijuana became legal and went through the process of the ordinance and implementing the rules and the regulations for that. So it's an important time for this board. If that is something that Aspen does decide to move forward with, then, that's a whole other element that this board would oversee, as well as you all. So, there are some important things that may be coming up in the future.
Thanks.
Others, we can start around here.
I don't have anything to add for that.
Anybody else? No? Is that enough, Bill? Okay, thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
I'll go to Ward and then John.
To follow up, Chris, how many times has LLC met in the last year?
LLA.
Once a month. We maybe had one meeting that was canceled from lack of applications, so 10 or 11.
And for all of you, would you find it, some people that have been bartenders and, would you find it, how would you deal with the situation if there was somebody that you know socially that had an issue in front of the board? Would you be able to put your personal feelings aside and deal with the situation on its merits?
Absolutely. I think that the rules are pretty cut and dry and easy to follow, and if someone makes a mistake or slips up, then those are the repercussions of their actions, especially when it comes to bars.
This is Michael. I would probably look to step aside in those situations. I can think, my friends own Pine Creek Cookhouse. My friend owned the Red Onion, Michael Tierney did, and now that's not anymore. But I think I'd have a hard time adjudicating an issue with someone who's a really good friend of mine. I'd have to recuse myself.
Thanks, Michael. Christine?
No, I don't think I would have an issue. I think our job would be to interpret the law as it's written, so it wouldn't really matter to me if there were somebody I knew or an establishment I had been to. I would look at the law and make a judgment based on that, which is what I believe our job is, so.
Thanks. Francis, do you have any additional?
I think as it stands right now, I see all kinds of people that maybe shouldn't be served, but that's just in the business of what I do every day at the retail liquor sales at Carl's, and we are very we follow the rules, and some people cannot get served whether they're intoxicated or don't have an ID, and I'm ready to follow the rules, whatever they may be, to make sure that we're sticking to the law and whatever the rules are for the license.
Thanks, Francis.
Another follow-up, and this, perhaps Jim can help with this. I think the last time City Council looked at a consumption lounge that, as I recall, there were none of them in the state at that time. There was a van that would drive around, but in Denver area. I'm curious if any of you in your positions, or if Jim knows if any consumption lounges have been established in the cup.
I don't.
Francis, you are closest to this issue.
Yeah, I understood that the Green Dragon was trying something in Denver, but I don't know if it ever came to fruition.
Okay,
As far as I know.
thank you.
You know of the Green Dragon's venture, or?
I just was familiar just because I know about business in the city of Aspen, so people talk, and that's the only.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, John?
Just as an aside, I'm pretty sure I read this weekend that there is either a consumption lounge opening in Denver soon, or it's being planned to open soon. It's in the works. My question to all the candidates, or I'm going to go a little deeper than Ward did, is do any of you have financial interests in restaurants or bars, whether ownership, management, or working for a restaurant or bar?
I don't.
Okay.
I do occasionally. I work as as an event bartender and as an independent contractor. So I've been brought in by Kemosabe to work events. At that point in time, that's about it, or at this point in time.
Thanks for your answer.
Thank you. Is that everything? Yeah. Any other follow-ups?
We're lucky to have so many great applicants. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate your making time for us today, and we'll let you know very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it.
The next board that we're going to be talking with is applicants for the Wheeler Board, and we have quite a number of them, so I'm going to have to break this into two. But let me just go down my list. I've got Amy and Amy, if you guys want to come on up. I have Damien
So nice to see you.
and Bob Eflin. Come on up. Do I see Damien? And if Damien is not on with us right now, I would take Jordan Redner.
Jordan is remote.
Okay, I got you there. Can you switch over to panelists? Some of those aren't coming up under attendees. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. So we've got 4 with Jordan on the line. Thank you. All right, the Wheeler Board. Yeah, we can do it there. The first question is, are you aware of the role and responsibilities of the meeting times for the Wheeler Board, and do you have any issues achieving those?
Yes, I'm aware, and no, I have no conflicts.
Same here. This is Bob.
And Jordan?
No issues.
Thank you very much. With that, I'll open it up to other council members who would like to start this round. John?
What does the Wheeler Opera House mean to you?
Let's just start at this end. Amy?
All right. I've been involved with the Wheeler Opera House in one form or another since I moved to town. So it is friends. It is pretty much family. It is all the professional development that I've had in the realm of theater and performance. And aside from me personally, I know it is the crown jewel of Aspen, and it really is the center of the performing arts, I believe, in definitely Aspen and certainly the Valley.
We stole everything. That's good. It's obviously the one of the most historic spots in the city of Aspen. But I think it's also has a regional appeal beyond that. Yeah, I think it's got an interesting mission to me that mixes entertainment with kind of community support. And it's something that I think we as a community have invested a lot of in the last decade. And so hope to see it kind of fulfill its potential.
I like how the Wheeler hasn't been adulterated. It's the same gorgeous community venue as it's been for 100 years. And with all the changes, I love how it has remained just. I fell in love with Aspen in 1989 and standing in front of the Wheeler. So.
Jordan?
My turn. Thank you. Yeah, I think that the Wheeler is this iconic venue that, to me, from both just a entertainment standpoint as well as emotionally for the community. I know when I attended the airport town hall, which was at the Wheeler on the lobby floor, it just felt like that was the right place for the community to have events like that, as well as just classic entertainment.
Thank you very much. Good. Any others?
If you could change significantly anything about how the Wheeler is run, what would it be?
We'll go in reverse. So Jordan, to you first.
Sure. Number one, I've not seen the budget of the Wheeler, but I think it can do even more to just market itself, both locally and regionally. I think there's a lot of competition. There's going to be a lot more competition with Jazz Aspen's new home with II.A doing a lot more programming, with ISIS closing. So I think that it's really going to be important to market itself in a certain way. And having had experience in both marketing and finance, I'd also like to take a look at the budget to see what makes the most sense.
Thank you.
Again, I haven't seen the budget, but the folks that work in the lobby have been there a long time. They seem to be happy. There's events for everyone, every age. I used to love the Country Day Holiday Sing there, the John Denver. I've seen countless events there. So I don't know the inside deals, but it seems perfect to me.
Thank you.
Again, Bob, for those who are wondering. You know, I think the biggest thing, and I think I spoke about this a couple years ago when I also applied, is utilization. Again, I see the investment as a community we've made in the space. In the last few years, it doesn't feel like there's been enough events there, certainly to accommodate what it could do, and enough engagement kind of with the community as well as performance events. So I was very interested in seeing some of the comments in past board meetings that the new director made about partnerships, you know, around programming that I think he's interested in. But I think utilization would, if I was thinking of something to change, which I think was your question, I'd like to see the space active more nights a week, more days during the week.
Thank you. Amy?
Well, I have seen the budget for years.
Many times.
Many times. And it is amazing how much money is used and expended all over the place, be it for the grants and well, everything. It takes a lot of money to keep that running and going, and it's a lot of work, and I really appreciate all of that that's gone into that. I think that the increased programming is fantastic, and that's what we've been hoping for. And as all performing arts venues have been struggling post-pandemic to get themselves back up and running and get people used to coming back to the theater again, that's something that they're struggling for. And along that line, something I've been repeatedly asking for and kind of pushing for is to find some sort of exterior lighting scheme for the Wheeler so that it looks like the active place that it is, which is extremely difficult to find something between the lighting code and HPC. And the folks that have been working on this for years and years and years have made submittal after submittal with different plans and trying to get that figured out. But that is one thing that I would do, is try and figure out a lighting scheme for interior and or exterior so that even when there's something going on, it doesn't look like there's anything going on, because you can't have an awful lot of lighting that shows from the inside and you can't have lights on the outside. So it doesn't look as active and inviting. And a lot of people will walk by and go, I didn't even know there was a show there tonight. So that's what I would like. I would like to find some way to make the building look as active as it actually is.
Thank you.
Good idea, Ian.
Other questions for this board? Yes, Ward, and then Sam?
Yeah, I have a couple questions on how all of you feel that the Wheeler Opera Board communicates with the City Council. Do you think there's a good flow? Is there any friction between the two bodies?
I'm sorry, are you asking if you think that there's friction between the council and the board?
Yeah, I've heard
within
in the
board?
past, some of the applicants in previous interviews say that they felt there were barriers or hurdles that the City Council threw up that the Wheeler Board had problems with. And I'm wondering, certainly with you, Amy, because you're on the board, and the rest of you, if you feel that there is a a good relationship, enough communication between the city council and the Wheeler board. So that's a general governance question.
Well, I haven't personally spoken to an awful lot of you recently about that, but I assume if you had questions for any of the board, you know that you're always welcome to put forth the questions or comments or concerns. And just in the last year or so, there was something put in place for not just our board, but all of the boards to communicate with city council. So I think that we haven't necessarily utilized that, but again, we just got a new director and just opened up again after a long closure, so there hasn't been an awful lot of communication, not a lot of issues to put forth that aren't there either in the minutes or that you've already seen. So I don't know if the new mode of communication is sufficient or lacking. I really haven't tried that yet.
And just to respond to that, if the board has issues to bring to city council, feel free that line of communication is welcome and open as well.
Okay, I don't know that anyone's got, at least we haven't spoken about any issues recently in any meetings. Or
It's been at least a year, but it is something that stuck in my mind, and just want to make sure that communication between the city council and the Wheeler board is open and welcome.
As far as I know, yeah, but like I say, the last 5 months or so, the Wheeler's been closed for getting the lighting and rigging reinstalled, so that was a long chunk of not a whole lot of forward motion or not an awful lot of discussion during board meetings.
The people I know that have been affiliated never said there was great camaraderie, never heard any problems.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any particular issues. I mean, some of the board meetings that I've watched remotely online haven't always included somebody from the city, but when it has, it's always been a very collegial, collaborative kind of a appearance, certainly to me.
And then
I'm not sure. Sorry. Is it my turn?
Go for it.
Didn't mean to. I'm not aware of any issues, but I'm on several boards, and there are always issues that pop up that cause a little bit of friction, and usually they can be worked out. So I can't imagine that there's anything that can't be worked out if there indeed is any kind of friction between the board and the city council.
And this is a question for all of you that there's been some discussion in the past about the appropriate mix of programming, the number of dark nights there are, if there's programming for everybody, and I'll toss this in on this question too, so you can chime in as you wish, that the competition between public facilities such as the Wheeler Opera House and private facilities, and how that affects, if that's unfair competition to the private facility, if you have any thoughts on that issue between the Wheeler and private venues.
I'll go first. I mean, I know that having spoken to the new director and been exposed a little bit to the belly up contract, so there are issues. I think that they can be worked out, but I think there are some issues between the public and the private. I think the public has a responsibility to make itself available to a pretty wide cross-section of audience. And I've done this before, and I know that sometimes that can be hard, and it's got to be factored in with all the financial considerations. But there's going to be competition. I mentioned it earlier. It's going to get more intense, in my opinion. I think that, but I think it's fair. I just think that just increases the challenge to the board and the management team to make sure that the kind of programming that we put into the Wheeler is as top-notch as possible and as well as meets the requirements of the community, because that's our audience.
Thank you. We'll just swing back the other way. Amy, if you don't mind.
What was the question?
Competition between the public-private sectors, the programming mix, the number of dark nights there are?
We live in a small town. There's not that many singers, plays, operas, this and that. I mean, there's going to be dark nights. I attend the Wheeler quite often. I do think that there's programming for everyone. And it's a destination. It's like you come to Aspen and it's part of it. It's, you know, to go to the Belly Up, if that's what you're thinking, or II.A, maybe II.A, I don't know, I don't really go down Valley that much. But I really don't feel that it's a big problem with that. I think that there's enough for children, and there's not children stuff at the Belly Up, you know, and I think the programming's great.
Thank you.
I know you guys got the resumes and stuff ahead of time, so you know that I was in the for-profit entertainment world for a good decade back in Atlanta. I think the competition's a good thing, and I think the Wheeler actually should have a leg up, just given our finances and given the nonprofit status of the organization and the history of the space. So I think it's a good thing. I am curious. I'm not sure what still exists, and I know I talked to you guys about the executive director role back in 2020, I think, but maybe earlier. But if we've got any non-competes, you know, with Belly Up or any of the other places in town, I don't know if we're still outsourcing F&B to other organizations or not, but it'd be good to know that, and that obviously impacts that competitive landscape. But it's an amazing space, and the more the merrier, I think, in town in terms of attracting events to Aspen.
Amy?
I've been really excited with the diversity of programming, starting with Lisa. She worked really hard at getting new and different programming, and I think she did a really great job of that. And continuing on with Mike, who has his broad background and all the things that he's got in the pipeline, it's really exciting. And as far as Dark Nights, we've been pushing for more and more production since pre-pandemic. And honestly, way back then, so pre-2020, even the council had said in response to, hey, we need the council to okay more employees so we can have more programming. And city staff and council told the Wheeler, you need to back off programming then. So it's taken a while to get back, as things change eventually, to go, yes, okay, you should do more programming and you should hire more people. So with that kind of floodgate being opened, I think it's really exciting that there's an awful lot of programming coming up from now until the springtime again. And the diversity of all of that is really quite exciting.
Thank you. Yep, Sam?
I got two questions for you guys. So next month we got Jerry Seinfeld coming, and I just wanted to know, do you support spending Wheeler rep funds on more A-list acts at the Wheeler? More big names at the Wheeler. Is that something you support or not?
Absolutely.
Wheeler, yeah. Yeah.
You know, we're an interesting. The city's interesting from an entertainment standpoint, that a lot of our customers change out each week versus having a lot of you're turning that monthly customer into a weekly customer into a daily customer. So it's a little bit different. And I think you certainly have to do some of that. And again, I don't know what we had to dip in for him and and what we were able to recover from increased ticket pricing. So I'd want to understand that a little bit better. But yeah, I think the space. Yeah, I think people look at that space and they expect A-list performers.
My husband asked me if I wanted to go to Jerry Seinfeld, and I said no. Like, I'm sure if the people that are going to go are going to spend the money to make it worthwhile, great. But my children aren't going to Jerry Seinfeld. So yeah, if the people pay to recoup it, great. But wasn't quite my thing.
I saw Jerry Seinfeld, sorry. My turn?
Go ahead.
I saw Jerry Seinfeld in New York. It was a lot cheaper than it is in Aspen. I'll be going to that as well. I think it is important that we bring a variety on the slate so that we have both top-notch entertainment that could be A-list, but it could also be B and C list that we want to give some exposure to. So I think it's just a combination. We don't have to be one or the other. We need to create a slate every season that brings the best of both worlds.
I've owned a clothing store in Aspen for 25 years, and no ill respect to Jerry Seinfeld, but I don't think any of my customers would go to that. Bring Nikki Glazer, they might. I don't know. So, but if people pay to recoup it, great.
Yeah. For what it's worth, that was just an example. Because he is an A-list artist. He's coming.
Right. Yeah, so, yeah.
Diversity in the Wheeler obviously is very important. I'm just talking about, like, as a general sense, A-list artists coming,
Right.
whether it be Nikki Glazer or
Right.
Seinfeld or someone else, but understood.
Well, he's definitely the highest ticket price the Wheeler has probably ever had.
Yeah. No, and
So that kind of a thing. And not just, because it's a cherry on top of the sundae to have somebody like that and to be able to promote that, yes, we're selling out the house months in advance for something like that, which definitely is cherry on top. It's exciting for the town. It's exciting for the kids, actually, like this, that are going to have the school play the next month, to go, I got to do my 10th grade play or my 8th grade play on the same stage that had Jerry Seinfeld and the Eagles. How cool is that? So it's not just dollar amounts and headlines in the Denver press. It actually does kind of invigorate the community.
Yeah.
The NESPA's great. Go to that every year.
But also, I think Mike, just looking at his background, I haven't met him yet, knows that all these things are very negotiable. I mean, these acts coming to Aspen, while yes, logistically, I'm sure it's a challenge to get here, but you're playing in front of a really interesting, unique crowd that's going to build you in other markets, not just here. So it's always negotiable, but I think we have a lot to offer the acts. It's not just a one-way transaction.
Yeah. And then the other question I had, if you guys have answers to this, is I have interest in activating I call it the intermission room, the upstairs room with the bar. The vault. Thank you. I'm trying to remember the name. I think it should be activated more. I think it's such a cool space, and I think it's unfortunate that it's only open during events, but should have more regular time for community gathering. And if any of you have thought about it, I'd be curious what your thoughts are on activating the vault on especially dark nights where there's nothing playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll go first. I mean, I mentioned it earlier that I was at the town hall meeting for the airport, and I thought that was not only just an appropriate place, but an underutilized space that I think can be used a lot more. So yes, I think it's appropriate for that space to be more of a town community functional space than just a bar during a concert.
Thanks, Jordan. I'll go this way.
Absolutely. It was set up to be more fully realized ages ago. Part of the difficulty is with the rates of the room and what it costs to get that staffed and everything all set up to have that with such a small space. So it's kind of difficult with ticket prices and the performance or speaker or whatever that's going to be in there and how much you can use. So it's kind of tricky to make it worth the performer's effort if they're going to walk away with $50 at the end of all that. So and I'm not saying that the Wheeler is way overcharging, because it does take a lot to set up a room with lights and audio and to do all of that. But it does make it, I don't want to say cost prohibitive, but it's not the experimental, $200 for the night kind of room that you might think that it feels like sometimes. So without looking at that, it's a tricky one.
Space is limited. Yeah, it's being on the second floor, and it's not that big of a space. As I listen to and read a lot of the board notes in the last couple of years, it's been an active conversation at that level. So I don't know that it's a matter of pushback on the idea. I think it's more they haven't kind of figured it out yet. And so again, one of the reasons that I want to participate is just to help, those guys be successful and think of creative ways to make those things happen.
Thanks. Amy, anything to add?
Well, I'm always looking for community. Remember, I went to the community center at the Powerhouse. Like, maybe that floor occasionally could be open to, I don't know, book club or whatever. But it's so pristine and beautiful, they probably don't want to, mess it up with coffee spilling and stuff like that. But yeah, more community up there. Not performance, but just,
Thank you. Yeah, and for what it's worth, I didn't necessarily mean events of performances. I generally just meant like open to the public to go grab a drink and talk to another community member or whatever you could do with the space. I just think I look at what the art museum does with their apres, and I think it doesn't need to be that, but that's on the spectrum where I'm like, that space would be so cool to go to from time to time.
City Hall meet and greet.
Something like that. Exactly.
And I wish I knew what it was, but there's actually an event coming up in the vault. Forget the listing. I just saw it recently, though. Any other follow-up?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Just a curiosity, Jordan, you said you saw Jerry Seinfeld in New York and it was less expensive than Aspen. I'm curious, how many seat venue was that?
Well, a much bigger venue, probably 4 times the size. It was the Beacon Theater.
Yeah.
And he was doing a residency there. So, but that said, and I think everybody sort of echoed it, the $1,000 ticket, as an example, is pretty steep for the average person. So obviously, it's expensive. It's not for everybody that wants to spend that kind of money. And I think in Aspen, we have enough issues with the super rich as it is. So it's, there is got to be a balance, and it is on the expensive side.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Jordan. Appreciate you very much. We appreciate your time tonight, and we appreciate you applying. We do have another group that are also applying for the Wheelers, so we will let you guys know very shortly. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And if you're looking for cheaper ways to get into the Wheeler, there is the Wheeler Insider Program. Just go to the go to the box office, show them your local ID, and you'll be the first to know. Thank you, gentlemen.
All signed up.
Yes, our next group is Brian Weidengarten, John Starr, Sarah Pelch, Charles Cuniff, and Noel Holloway. We have with us your name, sir.
Brian Weingarten.
Thank you. Sarah
Pelch.
Charles
Cuniff.
Is anybody online? No John Starr, no Noel. Okay. The first question is, are you aware of the role and responsibilities and the meeting date and times for the Wheeler Opera House Board, and do you have any conflict therein in achieving those?
Third Wednesday of the month at 3 o'clock, no conflict. The next 3 months, I would be available to be in person. There would be a situation sometimes where I might have to be virtual because I travel a lot for work.
I understand, and I'm good.
Thank you very much.
I'd suggest we reiterate some of the questions from the.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They were all great questions.
No new questions.
Maybe more abbreviated, though. Ward, I'm going to start with you because you asked a bulk of those. So if there's any follow-ups or re-asking, let's get those done.
Well, I don't have to re-ask these people because I didn't ask them in the first place, but I did ask the other group just
for my sake.
I think the same questions that I had asked the other people is the dynamics of a public venue such as the Wheeler Opera House that's subsidized pretty heavily in their programming versus a private sector, and what the dynamics of that are to you all, and if you think that the second part of that question was the number of dark nights there were, if that's appropriate, if there should be more or fewer, and then the third part of that that tripod was. Is the balance proper in the programming for the types of programming, the mix of programming? Do you feel that the Wheeler is offering the right kind of programming for our community?
Start with
So three
Brian.
parts.
Start with me.
Start with you, if I could.
I'm involved in a number of nonprofits in Aspen. I've been a resident here full-time resident since 2017. I think the Wheeler is a great facility, and I think it has incredible potential. And I think that since this new director, Harrington, has come along, I seem to have seen that a lot more advertising of events. So I think that's great. And I don't see any conflict between public and private. That's just part of city government and Aspen being a town with private businesses. But otherwise, I think this is a great opportunity, and for the Wheeler to continue to be great, and it's an important part of the Aspen community, the arts community.
How about the number of dark nights?
You do the best you can. You have a new staff. I hear very good things about this new director, Harrington, and as I said, I think I'm seeing a lot more events being publicized, and you do the best you can. If there's an opportunity for dance or comedy or ballet, you bring it on. And if you don't, then you have dark nights.
The public-private setup is really interesting because just in the general music industry, if a venue has funding given to it, they're not even fundraising, they're just funded by the real estate transfer tax. So if they can take more financial risks in a way, if they want to go after a show that costs $100,000 and maybe it only sells 50 tickets, that probably doesn't exist, but they're going to be okay. Whereas if Belly Up did that or Aspen Music Festival did that, I mean, they, one's profit, one's nonprofit, they would have a financial setback that would affect them. So in that way, the Wheeler could go after more artists, and they have a advantage in that way against the other entities. It seems like the genres that go to Belly Up versus the Wheeler don't often overlap, so that seems to be pretty safe. If there's a scenario where the Wheeler goes after an artist that used to play Belly Up, but then Wheeler's like, oh, I can pay you more, so play my room, then that, creates friction, and that has to be worked out. I'm an agent for musicians, and so in that scenario, I always have to work that out with the presenter of record, because the relationships are everything in this business. So the agency and management company for the artist will hopefully work that out, or maybe it becomes a co-presentation, and then it's a win-win. If it's a show with an artist that wants to be in a seated venue, like an EDM show would probably not go to the Wheeler. It makes more sense to be at Belly Up. So I think it's a really interesting dynamic and an interesting conversation. But I don't see too many problems with it so far. And the Wheeler, now that Mike is there, and that's actually why I'm applying to be on the board, because I want to support the work that Mike is doing, is he is booking more shows, and that's what I want to see as a Aspen citizen and patron. And I was there last night at a comedy show, and I've been many times since I've lived here in 2017. But it seems like he is going after more artists, and the big, and I think it's nice that it's a mix of A-list artists and kind of more niche artistic projects. I think that's really interesting for the community and for me as a patron of culture.
Do you book any acts that perform at the Wheeler or would perform at the Wheeler?
I do. I represent Counterpoint, which will be there on February 17th, and I booked that with Mike. And over the years, I haven't had that many artists perform at the Wheeler. Most of my artists are at the Aspen Music Festival because I work in classical music.
Thank you. Charles, the same question to you.
Conflict with private venues. I don't really see that as being a major issue. Belly Up, Michael and Jim Horowitz had a disagreement about that. Mike's take on it was that competition is good. I agree with her. I don't think that the acts that are booked at the Wheeler, for the most part, are direct competition with Belly Up. And the vast variety of events at the Wheeler are not at all what people would go to if they were the type of people who wanted to go to the Belly Up instead. Belly Up's mostly live music and more loud live music, and I just don't see it competing with the atmosphere of the Wheeler.
Thank you. Others, or would you like?
No, I'll pass.
Sam, do you want to?
Yeah, but first, Sarah, I just want to ask you in particularly how your role is more, you can explain how it's more a benefit to being on this board than a conflict of interest. I just wanted to.
Sure. I thought you all might ask me about conflict of interest, and I don't see that I would have any particular sway over Mike Harrington to make him book one of my shows because I'm on the board. I can't, I mean, I'm not giving them money. If I was on the board of a festival or a venue where I gave them $100,000 a year, yeah, they might program what I want. But that's not the case here. And wait, what was the first part?
Well, I guess like in the situation that you have like a
what's
thing.
the benefit of me being on this?
Well, yeah. Since it's not conflict, like you having all these acts and access to these acts, is it going to be a potential benefit to you being on the board, or is it more of a conflict? That's what I was trying to sort through.
List is on Main Street.
I do answer to the artists on my roster. They're my clients. So I can't imagine a world in which I would tell my artist, you really need to play the Wheeler Opera House and not Klein Music Tent, and here's why. I mean, it's whatever venue and financial offer and context is best for the artist. What I do think I bring that could benefit the Wheeler is my expertise in working with venues all over North America for decades and seeing how deals are structured and maybe what's worked at certain venues or what doesn't work. And I love that Mike is taking some risks artistically and doing some niche programming in addition to the household names. And so maybe if ticket sales are slow, I could say, hey, this is what's helped in this other city for this artist. Let's try this. I mean, I would do that anyway as the agent for that artist, but.
No, but it's in-depth knowledge. And then finally, the questions I asked the first group was Seinfeld as an example, but only an example. Do you support spending Wheeler rep money on more A-list artists to come to the Wheeler Opera House as part of diverse programming?
I think Jerry Seinfeld coming to Aspen is great. I'm sure there's lots of artists who'd like to come to Aspen and enjoy our town and perform, and I just think it's wonderful. I wish there were more of them, and I think if the Wheeler sees that Jerry Seinfeld does well and can sell tickets at $1,000, then they're going to have more. But I do agree that I do think that there needs to be diversity. So people like the opera, people like the dance, people like other things. Dance Aspen's very nice, the ballet is very nice. But I think I've been to a lot of comedy shows there, and I think it's a great venue for it. And there's no really other place to go for it. So, and there's, if you go to Netflix, you see a lot of different comedians. And we used to have the HBO Comedy Festival, which I went to. When you bought a ticket, pass for the whole week. I thought it was or 3 days, or whatever. It was very affordable. And I think it's a great idea. And I think that I hope to see more in the future.
Yes, I'm very excited about having more household name artists in the mix. And with the finances of it, Jerry's fee must be massive. And so that $1,000 ticket is what covers the fee. But I know that there was the Wheeler Insider price of maybe $75. I think my friend got a ticket for $75, and he's going to see Jerry Seinfeld. It sounds like the community's really excited about it. My friends are excited to go. And it's also good for the industry to see that the Wheeler is doing this type of programming. I mean, if Jerry Seinfeld tells all his comic friends, hey, I just played the Wheeler in Aspen, and they might say, oh, you mean Vail? No, the Wheeler in Aspen. And they might be like, oh, I didn't know that Aspen does comedy besides the Laugh Fest, or I think it's good. Yeah, it's exciting for the community. And it doesn't seem like it's irresponsible spending of the RET money if those high ticket prices are covering it for the people that can pay that and want to pay that, which is not me.
Yeah.
I think a broad range of offerings is the best way to go. Where you have things for the kids. My family has the local pass. It's a great thing. We've been to many shows this year. Went to the comedy last night, Tom Papa and Andy Ferrelli. It was a really good show. I think bringing in A-list people on a certain period of time, once a month or something like that is good. And bringing in unknowns. When I was on the Wheeler Associates, we brought in Faith Hill and Harry Connick Jr. and Nora Jones, and they weren't known at the time. But then they became, shortly after that, they became very, very popular. In a way, we could serve as an incubator for up-and-coming artists, and as well as a showcase for A-list artists, and everything in between, and every kind of entertainment in between. There's circus acts and a lot of comedy and other music shows that are coming up. Looking forward to all of that. In terms of the dark nights versus not dark nights, I think we could have more nights that it's active, and I like the notion of trying to activate the bar during the day. When I was involved with that restoration, and the idea was to make it a venue that could be used more by locals, and it'd be good for lectures, presentations, community groups. There's a dearth of opportunities for community groups to have accessible spaces that they can rent, and maybe it could be offered at just a stipend to cover the management cost of it, and not have to charge the groups to use it. But that helps make the Wheeler truly a community asset rather than just an entertainment venue. I think we kind of owe it to the community to use the Wheeler in a variety of ways that maybe it's not being used yet.
Yeah, Charles was saying, the second part was use of the vault and activating it more often, not necessarily for performances, but for just other uses, if you guys are interested in that.
I think it's a nice idea, and I think it should be explored. And I think the staff, the new staff at the Wheeler, if they could figure it out, why wouldn't you want to use it? It's a beautiful part of the building, and I've had drinks there, and during the intermissions of shows, and if you could activate it further, so that would be great.
Yeah, if staffing can handle that. I've been, the Ideas Festival, did panel sessions there. I went to Consensual Improv when the Wheeler was dark because of the rigging in the vault. That was so fun. And if Yeah, it is a beautiful space. I mean, I wouldn't want to see it turn into just like a drunken madhouse
Yeah.
during the day, you know? But sure, it's a gorgeous space, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any others for this group?
Yeah, my only question is there anything you'd like to see the Wheeler do differently, or anything you'd like to change that the Wheeler's doing currently?
Again, I serve now on the Theater Aspen Film. I'm involved with Anderson Ranch. You know, everyone has their niche, and I think that the Wheeler has their niche. And I think, again, with this new director, he seems very ambitious into bringing different types of programming in, and the more programming, the better. It's a great facility, and it should be used to its utmost capabilities. You know, that's how I feel about it, and that's, as an advisor in this committee to you, that's what I would continue to say. You know, that the better use of this building, you know, the greater revenue for the city, and the greater participation by all people who come to town. So that's how I feel about that.
Okay.
Yeah, more shows, which I think is starting to happen, that more so than has been over the past few years. So I'm excited about that.
I think, as I mentioned before, using the vault more actively and having more shows. I think also part of this board's responsibility is not just the entertainment, not just booking acts, it's also managing the facility in the first place. The revenue generating portions of it, the restaurant there and the gallery space, looking at operations and maintenance of the building. I think the board has some obligations to look broader than just the stage and take care of the building. And I'm really glad that the building's been restored to the degree that it has, and it'd be nice to see that happen. And the last remaining building, the Armory, the same thing, it should be very historically preserved like the Wheeler has, the Elks Building has, which I was part of as well. I think maintaining and preserving the character of the Wheeler is very important, as well as the entertainment that occurs within it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other follow-ups this evening?
Express my appreciation for all of you and the previous group, and since my time on council, we've never had so many applicants for any single board, maybe even all of the boards that we were doing collectively in one night interviews for. So thank you so much for your existing service and interest in applying.
Thanks, Bill. Yes, and, you know, it goes to say again, all of you are extremely qualified, you know, interviewing well, real surety in your answers about your positions, and so thank you so much for coming in and sharing that with us. For this board's information, there are 3 regular and 1 alternate openings. Amy Mountjoy is a reapplicant. All right, thank you guys so much. We'll let you know as soon as we know, and have a wonderful evening. Thanks for making time for us tonight.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
There's a 6 o'clock bluegrass show tonight.
Nice.
I'm not sure we'll be done here.
It's the Rangers.
Sounds like a dream, though.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
Very interesting. All right, that concludes our board and commission interviews for this evening. That'll bring us to our next agenda item then. We are talking about water quality and an update on our discussion that happened here at council table. We had inquiries around fluoridation, as well as, which morphed into just more of a update on water quality.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor Tory. My name is Justin Foreman, Utilities Director. I have with me Ryan Laybach, Utilities Process Manager, and CJ Oliver, Director of Environmental Health and Sustainability. Thank you for your time this evening. We're here to talk about the City of Aspen's water treatment process and potable water quality. Additionally, you will find a more detailed history and information regarding the city's water treatment and water quality in your packet. It's important to note that the water system and its processes and their associated treatment chemicals are governed and approved by the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, which you may hear us refer to as CDPHE, the National Science Foundation, and the Environmental Protection Agency, also known as EPA. Aspen's water system delivers over 1 billion gallons of safe and reliable potable water per year for the community use and benefit. The department has state-certified operators that treat, monitor, and deliver water to the city and parts of the county 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Good evening. My name is Ryan. Thanks for having us today. Wanted to just refresh the room on kind of the layout of the water campus. I know all of you have taken tours with Justin or Tyler before. So this is just a quick aerial showing a bit of the different elements and buildings here at the water campus. To simplify it a bit, at least in my mind, here's a schematic of how we receive water and the different unit processes and some big chemical names that show how we move water through that treatment plant and the different elements that get added. And, you know, water treatment is a complex process. We are not expecting council to understand every aspect of this, but we wanted to be very transparent into what goes into producing our water. Please feel free to stop and ask any questions you may have to help you make policy level decisions. Aspen is fortunate to have two high alpine water sources, Maroon Creek and Castle Creek. Both have little human influence prior to receiving the raw water in the Leonard Thomas Reservoir, shown in the pictures above. From a water quality perspective, this means the city's treatment process is focused on removing and inactivating microbiology from the water sources. Leonard Thomas provides a wide spot on the road for staff to manage supply and demand variations, and also acts as raw water storage. It's important to note that the Leonard Thomas Reservoir has only 1 to 3 days worth of storage, depending on weather and season. From the Leonard Thomas Reservoir, the water can be diverted into either the west plant or the east plant. In each plant, river solids and the raw water are treated through chemistry and physical processes. The two coagulants are fed with precise chemical feed pumps and stored as shown above. Bulk liquid coagulants are delivered quarterly and stored in multiple 500-gallon storage tanks that you see there. Once treated with coagulant, particles in the water can be settled or filtered. And those settled processes are shown in the diagram there. This slide presents pictures of one of the city's filters. This is where the remaining river solid particles that have not settled are physically removed from the water. The filter media consists of 18 inches of anthracite and 18 inches of sand. As the filter operates over time, it becomes clogged with these particles and requires a backwash cleaning process. The filter above, as shown on the left, is undergoing a backwash cleaning process. On the right, operators add a filter aid to increase filter run times. Filters are backwashed once per week during the winter and once every 1 to 2 days during runoff. Any questions so far or comments? Okay, I'll keep going then. All right, the fate of coagulants. All solids removed from the raw water, including those coagulants that were added, find their way to the city's, let me go back about it. The purpose of all the previously mentioned treatment chemicals Added to the water is to remove river solids and microbiology through chemistry and physical treatment. The first removal and storage step is shown above. That's the east sedimentation basin on the left. And on the right are the west plant clarifiers. Those are the geodesic domes you drive by on the way up. And there's 2 of those. Solids are stored here until they are moved through a pipe to the backwash pond or removed using a vacuum truck to collect solids for discharge directly to the drying bed. All right, as I started previously, all solids are removed from the raw water. All solids removed from the raw water find their way to the city's backwash pond, pictured on the right and at the top. These solids settle in the backwash pond and are excavated into the drying bed to dry until hauled to a local landfill. You'll see our drying bed where the excavator, the tractor excavator is sitting on, that's our drying bed there. Water is leaving the backwash pond return to Castle Creek. City staff monitor the waters leaving the pond daily and are required to submit a monthly discharge monitoring report to CDPHE's Clean Water Division. Finally, the final chemicals added to the treatment process prior to delivery to the public are liquid bleach and sodium silica fluoride. Bleach is added to the water as the final treatment barrier to pathogen and microbial treatment. You'll see on the 2 slides on your right are the bleach storage tanks and bleach building, and then below operators are calibrating a new dosing pump to dose that bleach into the process. A fluoride solution is created on site in the green hoppers you see on the left of your screen. Fluoride solution is dosed in accordance with CDPHE Oral Health Unit and Safe Drinking Water Program recommendations. Finally, prior to entering the water distribution system, all potable water goes through the clear well, and that's the very large rectangular basin that you pass as first entering the gate at the water campus. It has the solar panels on top of it. On the inside, if you look below that concrete deck, this is what it looks like. And inside are a series of membrane baffles that take water from, once dosed with bleach, and let it contact in a serpentine motion until it leaves the clear well on the bottom left-hand side to the distribution system. The purpose of this clear well is to provide adequate disinfection contact with time with bleach. Once it does pass through the clear well, operators maintain a bleach concentration above 0.2 milligrams per liter after clear well contact time, and throughout the distribution system that residual is kept in accordance with CDPHE requirements. 24-hour monitoring. Aspen's water treatment chemicals and processes are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to ensure public health and safety. Additionally, the department provides documentation monthly to the state CDPHE office of water quality parameters such as pH, temperature, turbidity, chlorine, and fluoride concentrations in accordance with the city's CDPHE approved monitoring plan. Above shows pictures of various instrumentation that provides that information. We encourage council and the public to visit the city's annual water quality report on the department's website.
Yeah, so this concludes our presentation for the evening. Staff have no recommendations regarding water treatment, water quality, or community water fluoridation at this time. Staff are following all CDPHE and EPA guidelines for public health and safety. Aspen's potable water is proudly monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and staff will continue to provide any pertinent information to council regarding any of the water quality topics as requested. And staff appreciate the support of council for the Water and Utilities Department, and we're happy to entertain any questions that council may have about water treatment or water quality at this time.
Thanks. John?
Just one. I was reading earlier today about the heavy metals that were found up in Lincoln Creek, and I'm grateful that we get our water supply not from Lincoln Creek. Do you have any concerns about similar issues cropping up in Castle Maroon?
At this time, we do not, John. That's an excellent question. There's a certain time period where our operators will test over and above for things such as that. But at this time, that is not a concern of ours.
Great. Thanks.
Bill?
Firstly, thanks, guys, for all the work that you do. The water quality in Aspen, the potable water quality is second to none. I've never had any concerns or issues with it in my 15 years in Aspen, and I'm super pleased from it. That being said, I think that this fluoridation issue is controversial. There's people that have very strong opinions about it on both sides. It's not something that I alone would want to independently make the decision on for our community. I think there's great arguments on both sides. So what I would propose to sort of bring my thought process on this to a conclusion is we put this on the November ballot and let the community decide. There's a history behind that. It happened in 1989, according to the memo, and that's a long time in the past. I think it'd be appropriate to sort of present the arguments and let the community decide what's best for it. So that's sort of all I have to say. I don't have any specific questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Sam?
Yeah, I just want to say drink Aspen tap. Thank you guys for what you do. I do appreciate that the water here is so clean coming out of the tap and everything that you do to make that happen, because it's not an easy process. And then I just wanted to say that as far as the fluoridation water goes, reading as many articles as I can and, researching it more, it's one of those very interesting things where it's like the definition of misinformation, or like picking at a kernel of truth. Because it seems to me, in everything I've read, that too much fluoridation is bad. But that the key word is too much. But that 0.7 is the right amount. It's been studied time and time again, proving that it's a major benefit to the community to have fluoridation in your drinking water, but at that recommended level. And I feel like I can't be clear enough about that. And I understand what you're saying, Bill, but I would not support this going to a ballot initiative, just because to me it is clear as day that 0.7 is that recommended level. And I don't see any reason why we would fix what's not broken. I don't think we have a bunch of low IQ kids running around in Aspen because of our drinking water. I do think if you're a parent, I would be careful about your kid not swallowing fluoride toothpaste and going above that recommended 0.7 level. But I couldn't be more clear in saying that I think that 0.7 level, as expressed in this CDPHE letter from October 14th and then numerous scientifically backed studies, is very safe to do, and I continue to support that being what we do here in Aspen.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah, I think the level of fluoride that is put into the water is what the minimum that is recommended by the federal government. Is that correct?
The recommended range that we are dosing to is within that from CDPHE Oral Health.
Yeah, the 7.
0.7 is
0.7.
set by a Human and Health Service, that's right.
Yeah.
The minimum's 0.6.
There's a range where it's
0.6 to 0.9.
0.6 to 0.9, that's
Yep,
right.
correct.
The target 0.7, acceptable levels are 0.6 to 0.9.
And there's, if we can get a comment on there was it the EPA or a finding that fluoride is dangerous in drinking water? One of our members of our community, that's been a pet peeve or pet project for him for decades. And he came before us and said that it's been determined to be fluoride is a poison. And was it a court decision? If you could get for the public a brief review of what that was. And
well, I'm not prepared tonight to really dive into that. I would agree with Sam in a lot of respects that that although that case did make some conclusions, the basis of the conclusions were probably questionable. I did read the case that was provided to council. I think if you guys are going to consider putting it on a ballot or further getting into it further, it would take more of an effort by the water department and the legal team to really reply to all of the questions that are raised by that case, as well as other studies and other reports that you have. Because, again, as Bill said, it was very controversial. There's a lot of opinions. Some of them are valid, some of them are not necessarily valid. So my limited knowledge at this point would suggest to everybody that if you want to dive into that and you want to consider a ballot issue, you get more information from us and from perhaps the community before you take that next step. Everything we have now is compliant with the law.
And Jim, I would just add that, Ward, in the council packet, I believe the last attachment is a statement from CDPHE, and at the bottom of the statement, they reference that specific case or suit and their response to that based on state guidance.
Yeah, I'm rather agnostic on it and don't really care to go into it. If it's something that a future council wants to raise, have at it.
Thanks, Ward. Any additional?
I trust our water department and our Bureau of Health to tell us what to do, and I have no interest in putting this on a ballot.
All right, thanks for that. Let's see, what is the naturally occurring fluoridation in our water? Do you know?
We're right around 0.2.
0.2. And what's the nature of setting our watermark at 0.7? The minimum's it's 0.6 to 0.9. What's the difference there? How are we regulating that? And if we wanted to set that bar at 0.6, the lowest amount, is that possible, or is this precise or an imprecise science of measurement?
I would say it's relatively precise. There's the feedback loop is operators taking samples by hand at our entry point, Meadowwood Pump Station, taking that back to the lab and then adjusting that. So we're very much capable of hitting that over 75% of the time. We've proven that through our award suit with CDPHE. But that's why that range exists, is to provide that flexibility of hitting that 0.7. Could we achieve that 0.7 or 0.6? Yes. While sometimes going over to 0.7, yeah, that could very well be a possibility, but let's say 10% of the time. I hope that helps.
It does. Again, none of us know the full science behind this. I agree, Sam, that it's tough to make heads or tails out of so much of the information that's out of there. For any one study, you can find one that counters it, you know what I mean? So it's tough. I don't know if it's misinformation, but there's a lot of information out there. So when it comes to fluoridation, I have always, I'm concerned and careful about what we're adding and such. So for me, I do think that it deserves a longer conversation around minimizing the additional fluoride that we add. But as far as eliminating it, I don't think that there's necessarily that community-wide desire. But an advisory vote would tell you exactly where people are thinking about this. My next question for you is not on that topic, but when we're talking about our water system, potable water system in general, what are we not talking about here? We all know that we have storage, a lack of storage, if you will, or at least that our emergency storage is for a shorter period of time than perhaps we'd want. What about our infrastructure that carries the potable water to our customers and residents? What are we not talking about here that maybe we should be? What are the needs for our potable water system that we're not discussing right now?
Yeah, Tori, great question. I'll make an attempt at this. I would think that the city of Aspen is sitting in a similar position as a lot of utilities all throughout the country, and that deals with aging infrastructure. Right? We have a lot of great staff that are operating and maintaining. We have over 84 miles of underground buried pipe. A lot of storage tanks. We're all over the place, in and out of the city and county. So it's keeping up with that infrastructure at an appropriate pace.
Tyler, any other?
Sure. Yeah, I think similar to our efforts on the electric utility, we are undergoing a infrastructure renewal on an incremental basis. Council will see and has seen a bunch of focus in our water utility to renew our water treatment plant infrastructure and controls. That's one of our big focus areas because that's the heart and brain of our system. And then in subsequent years, you'll see those efforts expand out into our pipe and conveyance network. We have 80-something miles of pipe underneath the city of Aspen, serving the city of Aspen and the adjacent community that's within our service territory. And that's a lot of infrastructure. We're tackling replacement at a pace that is cognizant of the impact to our ratepayers and cognizant to the impact to the traveling public from a construction standpoint. So we're looking at how long our infrastructure lasts and trying to tackle the oldest parts of it and the most vulnerable parts of it, and that's what council will see from staff in our long-range plan for not only this utility but our electric utility.
With the water system that we have, I guess lifespan 40 to 50 years is kind of what we're seeing. We're kind of at that threshold now. Is that correct? Like this was a 70s installation?
So our treatment plants, I believe, were installed in 66 and 86? 83. So yeah, they're in terms of their controls, filter media are kind of at the end of their useful life. And that's a project you'll see coming down the pipeline. I think some of our conveyance infrastructure, our piping underground, has some pretty long lifespans. We were lucky to have essentially non-corrosive soils and non-corrosive water. So our pipes last for a really long time, except when they're subjected to ground movement, freeze-thaw cycles, other geologic events. So we're fairly lucky in that regard. Some of our neighboring utilities aren't so lucky, and their pipe degrades just based on other environmental factors. Ours kind of lasts as long as it can until it cracks from the ground moving. We've also, in the last probably 20, 30 years, moved to ductile iron pipe instead of cast iron. Ductile has proven to be a great product for us and can resist some of those geologic forces better than our cast system. And so we're focusing on getting cast iron pipe replaced out of our system incrementally.
Thanks. You just answered the second part, which was just to clarify that the repairs, maintenance, and upkeep that we are doing puts us in a better position than, say, 40 years ago when we were using an outdated, or now using an outdated material and the like. So we're seeing good repair and maintenance that should last another 50 years.
Yeah, I think our ductile iron pipe, I think most people would say 50 to 100 year lifespan quite easily. With our soil conditions and water conditions, I could see well upwards of that. till a new technology or new capacity is needed. So we're fairly lucky that our infrastructure lasts a long time because of our environmental conditions.
Most people that are in Aspen would share the sentiment that Aspen tap is better than bottled. It's delicious straight out of the tap. I would be one of those that would attest to that for myself. I feel very lucky about that. But every once in a while we hear of somebody that maybe tastes something or thinks something is wrong with theirs. Just for public information, what's available to anybody who thinks that maybe they're not getting the same quality of tap water that others are enjoying? I think we do testing, or can you just share that information for the public?
Yeah, Tori, great question. We invite the public to give us a call at the water department, and we will come out there and test the water at your residence versus what's coming out at the plant and even potentially in the neighborhood to make those comparisons of your water quality. I think at times there's seasonality where the water may taste a little bit different, and our operators are happy to walk anyone through that process and what they may be tasting or not tasting depending on time of year.
I appreciate that, and I'll just share a story just for maybe builds public confidence or what have you. But at the facility that I work at here in town, not City Hall, but the other one, we had a water issue, a potential leak. We didn't really know what was going on, and we needed to address that and fix that. And while it was costly, I will tell you that the removal of the old pipes that we had serving us was to all of our benefit. It is a noticeable difference in the service. So sometimes, it is the feed that goes into your singular house unit, apartment, or what have you, not the city's main. But some of those changes can be very noticeable and very beneficial to folks. So while it was a difficult task for us, in the long run, very worthwhile. So just want to share that with folks. And it starts with free testing, so if you want, get in touch with our water department. Any other questions or comments at this time from council members? John?
Yeah, this might be slightly off topic, but is it just me, or does it seem like we've had more water main breaks in the last 6 months than we have in any other 6-month time period recently?
I could see how that's a perception. I would tell you that we are on pace fairly consistent with the last 10 to 20 years of water main breaks. The last one we experienced last week happened to be quite visible to the public and impactful to the public, and perhaps that's why it seems more noticeable. We are generally dealing with between 10 and 15 on an annual basis. I'm not sure what our count is so far this season, but we're kind of running right in line with what we've seen, like I said, in the past 10 to 20 years. Generally, staff has been fairly able to get on it quick enough that the broader public isn't any the wiser, but the last one was a little bit more extensive than we've seen recently.
Well, and the reason I ask is because there was a water main break outside where I work last fall. The most recent one between First and Second was very close to where I live. And then there are the other ones that we've become aware of sitting up here at council table. I guess a follow-up question would be, it just seems to me that our wide temperature swings, especially this winter, have to have had an impact. I mean, we had that sub-zero period of weather for several days just a couple weeks ago, and now we almost hit 60 degrees today.
Yeah, anecdotally, what we find when we dig these up, when we have these temperature swings back and forth, is that it drives the frost depth deeper into the ground and creates that differential settlement. And so we tend to see more breaks when we see that large delta between the high and low temperatures, or days between high and low temperatures. So yeah, certainly not the conditions we like to see in the middle of winter in Aspen.
Right. Thanks for your answer and for making sense of that for me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the update. As you can see, there's one item here about fluoridation that is split like it probably is throughout the community. And so tackling that will be perhaps incumbent on another council. But thank you for the update on our water supply. There might have been an actual incident up Castle Creek today, perhaps?
Yeah, there's been a series of kind of small avalanches with this extreme temperature swings, but happy to say it will not affect our intakes or anything of the like. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Tyler. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, CP.
Yep, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I would like to call to order a special meeting of the Aspen City Council. Can we have a roll call for attendance?
I'll be playing the part of the clerk for roll call. Counselor Doyle,
Here.
Counselor Guth,
Yep, here.
Counselor Howenstein,
Here.
Counselor Rose.
Yeah.
Mayor Tory.
Here.
Oh, no, I jumped the gun. Your turn.
This is a special meeting of the Aspen City Council in which we do welcome a public comment. Are there any members of the public for public comment this evening? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council table.
Mr. Mayor, staff is requesting the council go into executive session pursuant to C.R.S. Section 246402-4B, conferences with an attorney for the local public body for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. 4E, determining positions, relative matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations and instructing negotiators, and 4F, personnel. The specific items of discussion involve the following: discussion, interview, and negotiations regarding a new city attorney, excuse me, and city manager review and contract discussions. Council votes to go into executive session. The executive session will be recorded, and the recording will be maintained by the clerk for a period of not less than 90 days. I do believe that if council intends to adjourn this meeting, it will convene the executive session downstairs and will not return to this meeting room for adjournment. It will adjourn from downstairs.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for executive session, please?
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Guth?
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein?
Yes.
Counselor Rose?
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Thank you as always to Grassroots. We'll see you soon next week.